The cheapest country in the European Union just lost the thing that made it cheap. Not because of inflation, not because of a war, not because some politician made a bad decision, because of a very good decision. One that was made in 1997, one that nobody reversed, one that has been quietly, mechanically, and completely legally dismantling Bulgaria's biggest economic advantage for over 2 decades. The decision that did this? It already happened. You cannot undo it. The mechanism is already running. The only thing left to figure out is how fast. Now. If you have ever moved to Bulgaria for the cheap living, you are Tom. Tom is 33. He works remotely for a Dutch fintech company. He earns €5,500 a month. In Amsterdam, that salary made him comfortable. In Sofia, he thought it made him invincible. In 2022, Tom moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in the Lozenys district of Sofia for €800 a month. He was paying €2,100 in Rotterdam. He started a spreadsheet. He called it the arbitrage. He told everyone at dinner parties about his genius. He had a very detailed opinion about the Bulgarian healthcare system, which he'd used once for a rash. Tom is not a bad person. Tom is just a person who made a calculation without reading the footnotes. This video is the footnote. This is not about whether Bulgaria is a nice place to live. It is a nice place to live. It is not about whether the euro is good or bad for Bulgaria. Reasonable people disagree. It is about a hidden mechanism, a structural trap, a set of forces that were set in motion before Tom was making spreadsheets, before the expat forums existed, before the digital nomad visa was even an idea. And once you see it, you will not be able to look at the cheap living in Europe argument the same way again. According to Eurostat's 2023 Comparative Price Level Index, Bulgaria sits at 53% of the EU average. That means that a basket of goods and services that costs €100 in the average EU country cost €53 in Bulgaria. 53%. You are paying half price for Europe. Now compare that to some of your alternatives. Portugal, 82% of the EU average. Poland, 63%. Romania, 58%. Estonia, 84%. Bulgaria is not just cheap. It is in a category of its own. It is a country that, in terms of prices, exists in a different decade from its EU neighbours, and Tom found this number. Of course he did. It was in every Best Countries for Digital Nomads article from 2019 to 2023. It was practically used as a marketing slogan. But here is the assumption most people quietly make when they see that number. They assume that 53% is a property of Bulgaria, something inherent to it, like the weather or the mountains. They assume it will be there next year and the year after and the year after that. That assumption is the trap. Because 53% is not a property of Bulgaria. It is a consequence of a very specific set of economic conditions, and those conditions are changing, not might change, are changing, right now. Now zoom out. In 1995, before EU accession was even a serious conversation, Bulgaria's price level was roughly 30% of the Western European average. By 2007, when it joined the EU, it had risen to around 44%. By 2015, it was 49%. By 2023, 53%. You might think that is a small, gradual, manageable drift. You might think Tom's spreadsheet can absorb a few percentage points per year. That claim falls apart the moment you look at what comes next. Because that gentle upward slope, it is about to become a ramp, and the reason is sitting in a Brussels filing cabinet, approved, signed, and waiting. Tom's spreadsheet has been working fine. The numbers add up. The coffee is still 1.20. The apartment is still €800. Everything is fine. But we just fixed the engine, and we forgot one thing. The engine is already in a car that's being driven directly into a wall. Most people who move to Bulgaria for the cheap living do not know what a currency board is. That is fine. Most economists who have never lived in Bulgaria do not fully understand the implications of Bulgaria's specific one either. So let me explain it in one sentence, and then let that sentence ruin the next few minutes for you. Since July 1st, 1997, the Bulgarian lev has been legally fixed to the euro at exactly 1.95583 lev per euro. Not approximately, not roughly. Exactly. It cannot move. By law. This is not a normal exchange rate peg. This is a currency board arrangement. Bulgaria's central bank is not allowed to print money to stimulate the economy. It is not allowed to cut interest rates during a crisis. It cannot devalue the lev to make exports cheaper. Every single lev in circulation must be backed by an equivalent amount of euros in reserve. In practice, this means Bulgaria has had for 27 years the monetary policy of the Eurozone, without being in the Eurozone. Think about what that means for Tom's theory. The cheap living that Tom is enjoying is not protected by a different currency. The lev is not a buffer. It does not float. It cannot depreciate to maintain Bulgaria's price competitiveness. The price advantage is not locked in by monetary policy. It is sitting there, exposed, protected by nothing but the gap between Bulgarian and Western European wages. That wage gap, the EU has been systematically, successfully and intentionally closing it since 2007. That is literally what EU cohesion funds are for. That is what structural development money is for. The EU looked at Bulgaria and said, "This country is too poor compared to its neighbours. Let us fix that." And they have been fixing it. Bulgarian average wages have risen from roughly €200 per month in 2005 to around €1,400 per month in 2024. That is a 600% increase in nominal terms over 2 decades. Now you might be thinking, great, Bulgarians are getting richer. That is a good thing. More spending power for local people. No problem. Wrong. Because when wages rise and the exchange rate cannot move, prices rise. Not immediately. Not uniformly, but inevitably. Permanently. This is a documented economic mechanism called the Balassa-Samuelson effect, and it has played out in every single Central and Eastern European country that integrated into the EU economy. The story we've been telling ourselves is that Bulgaria is cheap because Bulgaria is different. The truth is that Bulgaria is cheap because it is poor, and the EU has been curing the poverty. The cure comes with a price tag, literally. Tom's 53% is not a fixed point. It is a countdown. If you have ever made a financial decision based on a country being cheap, without understanding why it was cheap, drop a comment below. I want to know how many Toms are watching right now. You might think we are done. We are not done. In July 2020, Bulgaria officially joined ERM2. That is the exchange rate mechanism, the euro's mandatory waiting room. To adopt the euro, a country must spend at least 2 years in ERM2, demonstrating economic stability. Bulgaria has been in ERM2 for 5 years. The euro adoption target has been pushed, delayed, debated, and postponed. Political instability, audit concerns, and inflation criteria not met. But the direction has never changed. The destination has never been in doubt. This is not a prediction. The euro is coming to Bulgaria. The only question on the table is the exact calendar date. And here is why that matters in a way that is completely different from everything we have discussed so far. Right now, Bulgaria has the monetary constraints of the Eurozone without the psychological signal of the Eurozone. The lev is pegged, yes. Prices are rising, yes. But the signal has not been sent. The moment Bulgaria officially becomes a Euro country, three things happen at once, and they all run in the same direction. First, the psychological anchor lifts. For decades, Bulgarian sellers, landlords and businesses have priced in local terms. The lev felt like a Bulgarian number. When a Sofia landlord charges €800 for an apartment, he's comparing himself to the Sofia market. The moment the price is displayed in euros, side by side with Lisbon and Warsaw and Budapest, the comparison changes. Landlords start benchmarking against European cities, because why wouldn't they? Second, foreign capital floods in. This is not speculation, it is historical record. When Estonia adopted the euro in 2011, foreign direct investment as a percentage of GDP jumped sharply in the years immediately following adoption. The removal of currency risk makes Bulgaria instantly more attractive to European institutional investors. More capital chasing the same stock of apartments, businesses and land. You know what that does to prices. Third, and most importantly, the last psychological break disappears. Right now, there is still a tiny voice in the back of every foreign investor's head that says, yes, but it is not actually in the euro. There is still a tiny currency risk. That voice is wrong, mathematically. The lev has not moved in 27 years, but psychology is not mathematics, and that voice has been quietly suppressing some investment. The moment it disappears, the floodgate opens. Tom is still paying €800 for his apartment, but he just watched the identical apartment 2 floors below him get relisted at 1,100. His landlord saw the same listing. Now you might think the solution is for Bulgaria to slow down euro adoption, delay the process, buy time, buy cheap living. But here is the problem with that theory. The convergence does not need the euro to accelerate. The euro just removes the last speed limit. History does not repeat, but it is screaming at us right now. In January 2011, Estonia became the first former Soviet republic to adopt the euro. At the time, Estonia's price level was approximately 68% of the EU average. A cheap, fast-growing economy with a skilled workforce, low taxes, and an obsessive digital government. Sound familiar? By 2015, Estonia's price level had risen to 76% of the EU average. By 2020, it was 82%. By 2023, it sits at 84%. In 12 years, Estonia closed roughly 16 percentage points of the price gap with Western Europe. That is not gradual erosion. That is structural transformation. Now let us run that math on Bulgaria. Bulgaria is currently at 53%. Estonia in 2011 was at 68%. If Bulgaria follows even a slower convergence path than Estonia, a conservative trajectory puts Bulgaria at 65 to 70% of EU price levels within a decade of euro adoption. That means the coffee that costs €1.20 today costs €1 and 60 to €1.80 in 10 years. The apartment Tom rents for €800, that is 1,100 to 1,400 euros. Not because Sofia became Paris, because Sofia became Sofia, but the price of European stopped being a discount. Because Estonia was not experiencing a property boom in the years leading up to euro adoption. Bulgaria is. According to the Bulgarian National Statistical Institute, Sofia residential property prices rose by more than 50% between 2018 and 2024. That is before full euro convergence. That is the warm-up act. Here is the comparison that should make you sit with this for a moment. Imagine you're getting on a train. The train is already moving at 60 kilometers an hour. The euro adoption is not the engine. The engine has been running for 20 years. The euro adoption is just the point where they remove the speed limit sign. Let that sink in. Slovakia adopted the euro in 2009. Price convergence followed. Lithuania joined in 2015. Price convergence followed in Latvia in 2014. Convergence. The evidence is not a theory. It is a pattern with no exceptions. Tom opened a new tab. He searched Estonia cost of living 2010 versus 2023. He closed the tab very quickly and decided to go for a walk. And this is where the trap reveals its cruelest feature. Most people assume the brain drain problem gets better when a country gets richer. You might think, as Bulgarian wages rise and prices catch up to Western Europe, Bulgarians will stop leaving. There will be less reason to emigrate. The country stabilizes, problem solved. Unfortunately, the evidence points elsewhere, and the mechanism is almost elegant in how destructive it is. Bulgaria's population has fallen from approximately 9 million in 1989 to around 6.5 million today. That is a loss of nearly 30% of the population in 35 years. The UN has described it as one of the fastest rates of population decline of any country on Earth, not experiencing a war or famine. Now here is the paradox. The period of fastest population loss coincided precisely with the period of fastest economic integration with the EU. More access to the EU labour market meant more Bulgarians could leave. Better English education meant more of the most skilled workers could leave. Rising wages in Germany and the Netherlands compared to Bulgaria meant the reward for leaving was higher than ever. The EU did not cause the brain drain, but EU membership is the mechanism through which it operates at scale, and here is why euro adoption makes this significantly worse, not better. Right now, a Bulgarian doctor earns roughly 1,400 to 1,800 euros per month. A German doctor earns 6,000 to 8,000 euros per month. That gap is the emigration incentive. When prices in Bulgaria were half those in Germany, the lower Bulgarian salary still delivered a reasonable quality of life. As Bulgarian prices converge toward European levels, the quality of life delivered by a Bulgarian salary falls. The price of a Sofia apartment starts to look more like the price of a Leipzig apartment, but the salary does not keep pace, not yet, probably not for decades. The divergence between prices and wages in Bulgaria widens during the transition period, which means the emigration incentive does not decrease during euro convergence. It increases, because now you are paying European prices on a Bulgarian salary, and the option to leave, to go earn a European salary and pay European prices, looks more rational than ever. Tom's Bulgarian neighbour, a 28-year-old software developer named Georgi, has an offer from a Munich startup at 5,200 euros a month. His Sofia salary is 2,100. His rent just went up. He is thinking about it very seriously. Here is what that means for Tom. Fewer Georgi in Sofia means fewer young, productive, tax-paying Bulgarians sustaining the social infrastructure that Tom relies on. The hospitals, the roads, the services, the restaurants with the €6 lunch menus. The entire affordable economy that Tom based his spreadsheet on is running on a workforce that is, slowly and rationally, deciding to leave. It is like trying to enjoy a restaurant while watching the kitchen staff quietly put on their coats. Has anyone here experienced price convergence in a country they moved to for the low cost of living? Tell me where in the comments. I genuinely want to know. Okay, so who benefits from all of this? Because someone always benefits. The story we've been telling ourselves about EU price convergence is that it is about helping poorer countries catch up. And at a macro level, that is true. Average living standards rise, GDP per capita increases, poverty rates fall. These are real outcomes. But when you audit the underlying data on who captures the gains during the transition, the picture becomes considerably less flattering. The beneficiaries of Bulgaria's Euro transition fall into three categories, and Bulgarian middle-class workers are not prominently featured in any of them. First, Western European property investors. Bulgaria has been one of the most active markets for Western European property investment in the last decade, precisely because prices are low, but convergence is predictable. You're not buying a cheap property, you're buying an option on European price levels. The investors who understood this 5 years ago are already sitting on 40 to 60% paper gains. The ones who understand it today are still buying. By the time the average person watching this video discovers the Bulgaria opportunity, the opportunity has already been priced in for the sophisticated money. Second, large multinational corporations. One of Bulgaria's primary competitive advantages for foreign businesses has been very low labour costs inside an EU legal and regulatory framework. As wages rise, this advantage compresses, but the companies that have already built Bulgarian operations do not lose. They simply transition from paying Bulgarian wages to paying Bulgarian trending toward European wages, while having already captured years of the cost advantage. The arbitrage was always temporary. They knew that. That was the point. Third, the Bulgarian elite. The people who already own property, who already own businesses, whose assets are denominated in the thing that is appreciating. Price convergence is enormously good for asset owners and structurally damaging to wage earners who have not yet accumulated assets. This is not a theory. This is the documented pattern of every single EU price convergence event in Central and Eastern Europe. The gains accrue to capital. The costs are borne by labour. Tom, to his credit, owns no Bulgarian property. He is a renter. He has, unknowingly, placed himself in the category of people who experience only the cost side of price convergence and none of the asset appreciation side. He is paying for the transformation. He is not investing in it. And now here is the darkest part. Tom can fix this. He can buy Bulgarian property right now and participate in the appreciation. But the moment he does that, he becomes the Western European investor extracting value from the same convergence that is pricing out Bulgarian families. There is no clean position for Tom in this story. The trap is that every exit from the trap creates a new problem. Welcome to the Euro transition. Let us run the numbers one more time, not abstractly, for Tom. Tom moved to Sofia in 2022. His costs at the time: €800 rent, €150 food, €100 utilities and transport, €200 social activities and eating out. Total, approximately €1,250 per month. On a €5,500 salary, he was saving €4,250 a month. His plan was to save aggressively for 3 years and then figure out his next move. Let us say Bulgaria follows even a conservative convergence path. Price levels rise from 53% to 68% of the EU average over the next decade. That is a 28% increase in the real cost of living in Sofia. Nothing unusual by historical standards. Slower than Estonia, slower than Slovakia. Tom's €800 apartment is now €1,025. His food costs are €192. Transport and utilities, €128. Social life, €256. Total monthly cost, €1,601. He is still saving €3,899 a month. He is still comfortable, on paper. But here is what the spreadsheet does not capture. The reason Tom came to Sofia in 2022 was not just the savings rate, it was the quality of life for the money. The €6 lunches in the old town, the €4 glasses of wine, the culture of a European capital at the price of a mid-sized city. That specific experience, that arbitrage in quality of living, is what gets compressed first, fastest, and most permanently. The numbers change before the spreadsheet updates. By the time Tom's spreadsheet tells him Sofia is no longer worth it, Sofia has already stopped being the Sofia he moved to, and Georgie is gone, and the restaurant with the €6 lunches has a new menu, and the apartments that rent for €800 are being listed for 1,200, and there is a Dutch startup founder who just saw a YouTube video about how Sofia is the new, undiscovered gem of European living. And that person is Tom, but 2 years earlier, so let's recap what happened here. First, you lost certainty. The price level you saw was not permanent, it was a snapshot of a system in transition. Then you lost the mechanism. The lever peg removed the protection. There was no currency buffer. There was never a currency buffer. Then you lost time. The convergence is not starting. It started in 2007. You arrived during Act 3. Bulgaria's Euro trap is not a trap in the sinister sense. Nobody designed it to catch you. Nobody is pulling the levers. It is something far less dramatic and far more final. It is a system doing exactly what it was designed to do. The EU cohesion funds are working. The wage convergence is working. The single market integration is working. The trap is that it is all working. This is not about whether Bulgaria should join the euro. It should, and it will, and that is probably good for the Bulgarian people in the long run. This is not about whether the EU integration project is bad. By most measures, it has dramatically improved living standards across Central and Eastern Europe. This is about understanding that cheap is never a permanent condition. It is an economic gap. And gaps, by the nature of markets and policy and time, close. Bulgaria is not the last cheap country in Europe. It is the most recent country to begin the journey that every other cheap country has already taken. Estonia, Slovakia, Latvia, Lithuania. They were all at some point the subject of articles about Europe's hidden gem and affordable living in the heart of Europe. Bulgaria is where those articles are right now. In 5 years they will be somewhere else. Another country in ERM2. Another price level is sitting at 55% of the EU average. Another Tom, another spreadsheet. The only question worth asking is not whether the trap closes. The question is what you do now that you know it is already closing. Tom closed his spreadsheet. He opened a new one. This time, the first column was not the monthly costs. It was, what do I actually own here? The answer was nothing. He started to think about that. If this video made you rethink something you felt comfortable about, that is the only metric I actually care about. Hit the like button, not as a favour, because it genuinely helps this kind of analysis reach people before they make the spreadsheet rather than after. Subscribe if you want more of this. Economics is taught through the decisions of people who thought they understood the rules. And drop a comment with this. What country is your Bulgaria right now? Where are you? Or where are you planning to go because it is still cheap? And do you know why it is cheap? I will be reading every single one. See you in the next one.